So, The Acolyte, this is the very first Star Wars trailer, by the way, that got ratioed across the board at every single corner of the internet, and really is a big example. It couldn't be any more clearer than this, that Disney Star Wars has officially hit rock bottom, even lower than The Last Jedi backlash from fans back in 2017, and that's very telling about Kathleen Kennedy's track record, and how she has no plans to change her ways at all, for as long as she plans to stay over at Lucasfilm. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, if you don't know Leslye Headland, she is, in my book, worse than Kathleen Kennedy as far as how extreme she is with her beliefs of why Star Wars needs to change, how it should change, and how it's shifting away from George Lucas. She is the very person that once said that if you look up to George Lucas as the key to Star Wars, then you're a misogynist, and that is the misogyny and that's the problem. She's said that before, open and clear. Now, with The Acolyte still set to release by June 4th, Disney has been taking action against this agenda-driven director and showrunner of The Acolyte over at Lucasfilm, and it's only getting worse behind the scenes. Let's get into all of this, shall we? Now, specifically, one thing about Leslye Headland that I think is truly another example that The Acolyte is going to be a very big, colossal failure is that she took true inspiration from director and writer Rian Johnson and his movie The Last Jedi. Alright, the very person that really divided Star Wars fans back in 2017, that led to the rise of Skywalker, that in my book really was the final nail in the coffin. Alright, but this time, The Acolyte is truly going to bury Star Wars, I believe, because we don't really have all that great of a lineup of projects in the works. You know, I think that everyone universally already rejects the Rey Star Wars movie as it is, but looking forward here, alright, there's a lot of things going on. Now, with Bob Iger and the board of directors already planning more emergency meetings related to the Acolyte series Backlash as they approach the release of a new trailer, which, by the way, is set to debut this May. One major development now has to do with director and showrunner Leslye Headland of The Acolyte, where she is already beginning to hold many issues with the Walt Disney Company and the Disney heads behind the scenes after they recently made a sudden decision for her future at Lucasfilm. Now, one crucial update to the ongoing situation at Lucasfilm now involves how both Bob Iger and the rest of the board made a quick decision to cancel The Acolyte Season 2 in the wake of the ongoing backlash from true Star Wars fans just under 2 months before its release date. Already this has caused a serious divide, of course, over at Lucasfilm, where Headland is already blaming Disney for providing false promises for the future of her career at Lucasfilm, after Bob Iger also pulled the plug on plans for her to become the vice president of Lucasfilm, taking over the current one, that are now no longer happening. The Acolyte Season 2 now lost for Headland and no longer moving forward, as well as the loss of her significant promotion. She is still attached to other various projects as of today, as well as still planned to become a part of the Lucasfilm story group as it is. However, Headland is taking Disney's latest decision with all their cutbacks related to Headland's significance over at Lucasfilm very seriously after she lost her promotion in The Acolyte Season 2, and is even beginning to blame Kathleen Kennedy for not standing up for her thoroughly against the Disney heads beforehand, which in turn created a serious division at Lucasfilm HQ. Now, Kathleen Kennedy is now getting in the middle of the battle in order to save her partnership with Leslye Headland and their plans to alter the Star Wars universe with their agenda. Leslye is already making bold demands to the Disney heads, including Bob Iger, after they drop The Acolyte Season 2 as fast as possible. As of now, Leslye Headland is demanding a pay increase for 2 other projects that she is working on that are said to be Acolyte spin-off shows that would be considered prequels, quote-unquote, to Season 1. Now, Kathleen Kennedy is now getting in on the battle to diminish the recent grudge that Leslye had against Kathleen Kennedy for not preventing this from happening in the first place, and it's already creating much tension over at Lucasfilm, and is the main reason why no TV spots have debuted yet for The Acolyte after, of course, the trailer release, as of now, of course, Bob Iger is also cutting back on funds drastically to mute the campaign as much as he can, after the backlash got out of control on their hands. Now, this is reportedly a form of immediate damage control for the Acolyte, and Leslye Headland is said to not be liking it one bit, as she has been making heated arguments with Disney's executives and their decision to cut back on the marketing, believing that this will make the show fail entirely. Headland also, of course, even recently went as far to warn Disney that she would be willing to drop out of interviews and PR events for the Acolyte if this drama continues, and it's already creating more problems for Bob Iger's 2024 year as CEO, let alone what's been going on with the changes for the Rey Star Wars movie from director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Now guys, let me just say one thing about this before I move on. Now, Leslye Headland really has to have some kind of nerve to make these said demands. I mean, she really has never been involved over at Lucasfilm prior to the Acolyte. You know, she really wasn't all that significant at all at Lucasfilm headquarters. She only got in here because Kathleen Kennedy felt she was extreme enough to really kind of implant their agenda into a show like the Acolyte, and to really shift away from George Lucas's vision. That's what it's really all about here. And now you have a big shakeup happening over at the Disney Board of Directors based on what's been going on with the Acolyte. By the way, guys, this is exactly why they delayed the trailer from showing to the public for roughly 9 whole months. Alright, this trailer existed for practically a whole year over, of course, the Star Wars Celebration back in 2023, I believe it was. And ever since then, they hid the actual trailer. They refused to release it until just a couple of months before the release of this thing on June 4th. And that's exactly why. They knew the backlash was coming. They were anticipating it. They were ready for it. Heck, even Leslye Headland admitted this, that they were ready for a toxic male demographic, quote unquote, to really kind of voice their loud opinions. I mean, this is her way of blaming fans, right? I think everyone that has their criticism over the Acolyte are very much valid, and rightfully so. I mean, they really have a right piece of criticism about this show, because look at what Headland has said so far about the Acolyte. It's all about an agenda. It's all about focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, not the story, not the characters, not the lore. And it's all about besting what George Lucas once did with the original trilogy, alright? And even the prequels. She wants to retcon some elements of the prequel trilogy movies. That's another problem. Moving on, alright, to conclude things, Bob Iger and the board are also deciding to spend less funds on the projects now that Leslye Headland is still attached to in the meantime. And don't be too surprised, guys, by the way, if in the next month or two, they also begin to axe her involvement with those projects and or her promotion to becoming a part of the Lucasfilm story group. So again, I would love to hear what you all have to say about this ongoing scenario with the Acolyte series. We all know that this show is going to be a disaster come June 4th. Next month we got trailer 2, so be prepared for that. It's going to be quite an interesting thing to watch of how the people react. So overall, guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.